Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. What's up, y'all? DT2 Comic Shop here. And in this episode of Sloppy Spoilers, we're going to talk about The Wheel of Time, Episode 3, A Place of Safety. Subtitled, If You're Gonna Run, Don't Make It Worse. Let me bring on my co-host. Welcome to David Nemesis Howard. Come on in, Dave.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Looking forward to talking about this episode, as always. But this has one of the shock twists that I didn't see coming. So this is going to be great to talk about. So,
welcome to Steve Shadewing Sellers. What's up, Dr. Steve?
Oh, not a whole lot. I'm actually looking forward to talking about this one because this is where I think we really start getting interesting with this series. I did forget a little bit about what happened in this episode until I saw it. And then I kind of realized, okay, yeah, this is really starting to pick up now.
Cool. Is Bracy around?
yes, he is.
Bring in Jeff, Dr. Fate, Bracy. How you doing, Bracy?
Oh, good. Had a dinner mishap, but I'm here.
Shave and a haircut, 2 bits. You're a baseball coach. I want to get you out there in the field, make them kids know how to play.
Oh, I'm on it.
All right. So we're going to dive in with some first impressions. I will say at first, I thought this episode was kind of slow. And the development seemed interesting to me in terms of where we left off last time and how our little pairings got to where they got to, because it seems a little too convenient, but that's okay. I'm just being nitpicky. But then it has a very Whedon-esque twist at the end that completely changes the tone of the episode. It's not quite as good as Our Mrs. Reynolds, but it's that way. It's that idea. And so what I felt about the episode was, unfortunately, I liked the events, but I still need to see more of the characters and for them not to be caricatures. What we're looking at is things happening to them. And those things are so interesting, we want to see more. But still, 3 episodes in, I don't know any more about who they are as people or their motivations. I know more about their powers, potential powers. I know more about how they might handle threats. And I know more about, their secrets that are going to show up later. But the only one that has any significant character development is Matt, the one I can't stand. But he's definitely shown more of who he is as a person, as opposed to what he can do. Just about everybody else is about what they can do. So I ended up feeling like it was slow, but before it was all over, I really liked it, watched it a couple times. I was like, oh, okay. And the last thing I say before I'll throw it out to my co-host is, Steve is the most open-minded of all of us. And if Steve don't like you, you got to be a crappy character. And when Steve said he couldn't stand Nynaeve, I keep not saying it right. And I said, okay, I don't like her because she got too much attitude. This episode showed us she ain't nothing but attitude. Okay, and I'm like, no, you haven't even been on a scene long enough to earn that kind of thing, and you don't have enough power to talk to people the way you talk to them. What happens is what you have is main character powers. That's why things are happening with you, not anything that you've earned or shown us to have a reason to have that type of antagonism towards every single person that talks to you. I'm like, yeah, no, see, if Steve don't like you, you have already failed. But anyway, let me throw it out to my co-host. Give me some initial thoughts, and then we're going to go into specifics. Start with Nemesis.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to agree. Nynaeve is just absolutely, she's not hateable. She's just unlikable. It's like there are characters that I hate in this series, and I've watched ahead a little bit, but she's just, there's nothing that I can latch onto to really like root for this character versus another character who makes his appearance here that I know Steve loves, which is the Gleaman. And I don't know if it's about the writing of the character, who the character is, their arc, or what it is. And this is the only thing I'm going to say because I don't want to take up too much time in these opening moments. But this guy is here's some spoilers. He's not going to be around that long, but I get more invested in him than I do in some of the other characters who have been around much, much longer. So I don't know if it's the actor's ability. I don't know if it's the character itself, but there's something definitely going on there. And every moment that he's on screen, I'm like, yeah, give me more of this guy. So it's really kind of incredible.
Funny you should mention the Gleaman because he combines the mage, mentor, fool character. He's not a fool. I'm talking about the entertainer, the jester, joker character.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of a blur of all three, and he reminds me of Shepherd Book. I will forever believe that Shepherd Book used to be an operative, and that's how he knows everything that he knows.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, that's how the Gleaman strikes me. Gleaman strikes me like he's done some dirty work in a past life on an assassin's level, and now he does this thing to make you think he's harmless because he sings. Because you can't put a knife through somebody's throat from the back, dead center, from however many feet away with one. That's like a Walking Dead. That's a kill shot. But you got more, square footage up here. But this right here, I was like, oh no, you're an assassin. Okay, go ahead, Bracy. Initial thoughts.
Yeah, I can see why you felt like the episode was a little slow. There's definitely a part where, as my brother and cousin famously said when we were watching The Hobbit, like, oh man, that had a lot of walking in it. So much walking. All it lacked was Christopher Walken. That's how much walking it had. I was like, oh, okay, guys, whatever. And I can see where you get that. It did give us a chance to see a little bit more of the world, which I liked. Once again, the scenery of the locations, absolutely beautiful choices. But I did think there were important moments of character development in there. I have to agree with you, man. Like we're not getting as much from some of the other characters, but the blacksmith, they're doing some interesting things with him, and I like that because his personality is low key, and so as an understated character, perhaps that's why they're focusing on him, because you can really get a lot of mileage out of that. When and if he finally explodes, whatever's going to happen with him, I feel like it's going to be super interesting. And he's
easy to root for too.
Yeah, he's so likable, unlike naive Nimue, if I want to go Arthurian, whatever. It's like I do like seeing more of the world. The mining town's pretty interesting. And while this was not like an action-heavy piece, unlike the last, unlike the first couple episodes, which had some pretty explicit action in there, I still found this episode really overall enjoyable. Just getting a little bit of that more of the world and character development in there.
Cool. Steve, initial thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I do think that this was a little bit better in some respects than the previous two. I get what you're saying about the walking, and this is a Jordan problem, because Jordan had to have entire chapters devoted to nothing but walking and people talking about stupid stuff and complaining about, men complaining about women, women complaining about men, blah, 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 4 chapters. And you could have skipped to some of those scenes and lose nothing. So some of that is the way the books are structured. But even with that, I think they tried to make it a little bit better. And I think the scenes in the town with Rand and Matt and the Gleaman were quite good. I enjoyed those. I was not so pleased to see Nynaeve not alive, even though I knew she was. And so it's like, yes, she's really irritating. And I think that's the main thing for me. She's not like Leandrin, who is just a complete hateable character through and through. She's just irritating, and she's self-important, and she thinks she's superior to everybody else with nothing to back it up. And she eventually does get the power to back it up, but by then she hasn't earned it anyway. So we don't like her. And and it's like watching her with Lan. It's like I just want Lan to show her up and just move on with our lives, because she's just a completely annoying character, and I would rather have Moraine back than have Nynaeve the whole time. At least Moraine is interesting. I mean, she made me, sneaky and, duplicitous and, arrogant and all these other things, but she's interesting. And she's plot important. Nynaeve, I don't think is any of those things. She is just in there, because apparently the story likes her, and she's just complete irritation the entire way through.
That's a perfect transition into what we're going to go into. We're going to look at each of our pairings and which direction they went and how they ended up and kind of how that unfolded. That last thing that Steve said, I have said it for years. Some characters in a story are not characters, they're a function. The CW mastered that with Lana Lang in Smallville. She was a function. She was Hero's girlfriend. So they tried to take that to the next level with Felicity in Arrow and made her far too important. And they've done the same thing with Iris on The Flash because they're functions, Hero's girlfriend, and then we have to find something for them to do based on that. That's not a character. That's a function. And so I'm hoping, again, as we look at our individual pairings, because Moraine is a character. Moraine's got a lot going on. Lan's got a lot going on. And that's why we can't wait to see more of them. So that's our first couple we're going to look at. Now, this is not wrong or bad. We're going to file this under, this is what I would have done. I would have shown a little bit more of getting into the new location. Maybe it was just me. It felt like there was a bit of a disjoint because I was so invested in the darkness coming up off of Egwene and Perrin and watching them jump into the water. Somehow seeing everybody in their new environment feels a little disconnected to me from the last episode, but maybe it's just me. So I would have shown some type of something as to how we got here. And I also would have made each environment even more distinctly visually different, even using a different maybe filter when I shot it, so everything wasn't so bright and so dark. But that's just me. That's not wrong or bad, but that's what I would have done to give us the subliminal feel of they had to flee from the Dark City and now we're in this place. Okay, so having said that, looking at Moraine and Lan, I am utterly surprised at how much she's not in this episode. She's like out of it for most of the time and, kind of wakes up a little bit later and it's all about Nynaeve and Lan. And I do like the way that at the beginning Nynaeve is sure she has to drop on Lan and Lan is like, no, darling, I was just toying with you. But I'm surprised you really tried to take me out. So we got to fix that. So I like that part. But I'm amazed again that Moraine's got a growth on her shoulder that looks like an alien hive is growing up in that mug. And I know it's because of the trolling poison, but still, I was like, holy cow. I mean, it looked, like grosser than I thought. But we get the first little trickle of Nynaeve's, how can I say it? Her function, what she's going to do and what she's there for, because she's just all attitude. And you got to have, at least a different mood you can pull from. So as I'm watching these three and I'm watching Moraine out of it, I was like, she's going to wake up any minute, right? But I'm like, no, she was gone most of that. I was like, wow. So as I'm watching them, I'm saying to myself, they have to be going to something interesting because this is kind of boring. And then we see Lalandra and I'm like, oh, okay. And now as she's going to connect with the Aes Sedai that are most likely to be able to heal her, what happens is you get the hint of all the skeletons. Talk about some skeletons in the closet. These Aes Sedai, man, they could run a Scooby-Doo haunted house, man, because it's skeletons everywhere. And when we see the reds, because it's the look they got on their face, and it's what Lalandrin says to Moraine, because they are always cat and mousing, always squaring off like two dudes would, sizing each other up, waiting for the death blow, waiting for the strike. Like, I'm going to put that phony smile on my face, and yeah, we're sisters, but we're both coiled snakes, and we're just kind of weaving this thing, and one day it's going to pop. And I felt that as soon as I saw her. I was like, now that's interesting. That's what caught my attention when I finally saw where they were going. But I was like, if we can just get Nynaeve off the screen, that's good. So you guys tell me about that pairing, which is actually a trio. Excuse me, Moraine, Lan, and Nynaeve. Give me thoughts on that. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, this is a pet peeve of mine. I'm like you. I cannot stand the character who has been sadly all too common across all media the past 5-6 years or so. The character who just wants to get up in everybody's face. They're completely self-important, self-indulgent. They feel like they can talk down to anybody and everybody, like no other authority matters than their own. And it was actually nice to see this character have a moment where, like, no, you're not what you think you are. Like, she thinks she's got the drop on Lan, and he just easily disarms her, takes her out. The last time I saw something quite that satisfying was watching the last Transformers movie I decided to watch in the theater, which had this idiotic little girl in there who's like fixing Transformers, and she runs out in front of a bunch of Decepticons, and the shock and awe on her face when they just start blowing up everything trying to blast her to bits was like, that was very satisfying, because like, what did you think was going to happen, stupid? A 50-foot metal killbot is going to, like, oh, don't berate me, tiny fleshy human thing. No. So it was nice to see that sort of thing play out, because unfortunately the character is just annoying, and I want more from this character than that. So much more. The potential setup for her, and again, like Steve's the only one here who's read the books, I feel like it should be better. You expect a mentor character to have more from them, and if she was going to be a mentor to Gwen, she should have a lot more from her. And even if it's going to be one of those mentors who's like, really tough, seems like a hard ass, like whatever. There's always more to it than just that. The mentor role is not being fulfilled here, and without that expected role for her in the story, it's like you said, she's become less a character and more a function. I'm going to be de facto healer, but I'm going to be de facto healer with a chip on my shoulder, and I've got leverage because I'm de facto healer, so you're going to have to take a certain amount of my crap, even if you put me in my place. It was also it was surprising to see that Moraine wasn't in the episode so much, but I actually kind of applaud the decision that they sidelined a major player and let that play out. As long as they don't get kind of Walking Dead stupid with it, I'll be okay with it. Because Walking Dead just became, unfortunately, a soap opera with flesh-eating cannibal zombie dead people. But Lan keeps being the man. Lan the man. He is pretty exciting. He's on point the whole time. Everything he does has a purpose and a motive, so he's always fun to watch. And thanks to your tweets, I spent the whole episode trying to picture him as Namor through the entire show. I was like, yeah, man, like he looks good in this blue light. I imagine him underwater as Namor. Yeah,
Absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
he can definitely pull that off. So
Yeah,
let me
so
throw
it's-
this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, yeah. So it was. I got most of the enjoyment watching them as a trio of watching Lan, because he's really the force behind that interaction more than Nynaeve, because like you said, she's just annoying, and she's just a focal point of leverage at the moment.
Let me throw this out before I throw it to Steve. We get to see how Nynaeve, the Village Wisdom, survived the Trolloc attack. And once again, I have to scream main character powers, because you should have been kibbles and bits. And then while that's going on, it was dark and it was funny. It was awful all at the same time. Homeboy is looking at his wounded comrade, and it looks like he's going to try to help him out. Then he rips his guts out like a string of Looney Tunes hot dogs and snarfs him. I was like, what the world?
I actually like that part a lot. I like
I'm
the
like-
idea that the Trollocs have no place for weakness in their society.
That was it. I'm like, so we're talking about apex predators, man. It's like if you see weakness in a fellow dude, you're not just going to kill him and let him die. You're going to eat him. I was like, holy cow. But then she just gets up and runs away and then goes to the magic healing waters of Lake Minnetonka. And somehow she dips down in the water. She dips down in the water, and he got a nose the size of Montana, but he can't smell her. Okay. So then he's like, let me get in the pool and let me dip my spear. You got to be down here somewhere. And then she gets a predator rising frame. She's rising like the predator did with his dreadlocks behind him. And then we just saw them get stabbed and shot and whatever, not shot with guns, but, you know, stabbed, pierced, whatever, several times. And they're hard to put down. She takes his sword, he swings and misses, and just with a blow or two, and then she goes underneath the water and she comes out. I was like, main character powers. That thing should have made you the Baby Ruth and Butterfingers. But anyway, go ahead, Steve. I had to throw that out because I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
Territory, but main character powers.
I didn't like that either. I mean, there are better ways that they could have done that. They could have had her like find some way to accidentally tap into the one power and blow him up or something. You know, that would have been more believable to me. I could have bought that. No, that's not what they do. It's just, you know, we have to show off how awesome Nynaeve is because reasons. And it's like, no, that's not convincing me to like her. That's like, why in the world are you keeping her around because she's irritating? Yeah, so Lan is easily the most interesting of them. The moment where Lan actually is like, yeah, I let you do that. Yeah, that I'm like, okay, yeah, now this whole thing makes a bit more sense. You know, I completely bought that because, you know, Lan's not necessarily going to hurt her, but he might humiliate her a little bit, you know, just to teach her a little bit of a lesson, which she has earned. So I'm all for that. If it had been an entire episode of Lan showing up Nynaeve, that would have entertained me. I would have liked that. With Moiraine, I agree she was underused. And here's the problem. It's like she doesn't get in that Gandalf moment that she should be getting in. You know, because, you know, you can have the mentor be out for a length of time because she's wounded or whatever. You can do that. But you have to make those few moments that she gets matter. She has to do something important. She has to you know, have a line that is memorable, or, you know, just doing something that is plot significant, or even doing something to smack down Nynaeve and say, I'm in charge here, not you. I don't care. You know, even me being knocked out as badly as I am, I'm still the boss of you. I'm still Aes Sedai. If we'd had a moment like that, I think that it would have been better. But unfortunately, it's like they had to get Moiraine off the stage so we can have Lan and Nynaeve do whatever it is that they're doing, because they're obviously setting something up between the two of them. And it's just like, yeah, no, not buying it. Not on board with that.
All right, Dims, what do you think about Moiraine, Lan, and Nynaeve, aka Apex Predator, take you out underneath the water with my bare hands?
Well, first, when you mentioned Lake Minnetonka, I got to go back to
Purple Rain, man.
Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, and wonder, you know, game blouses, you know. So there's, but yeah, going back to what you were saying, I want to go back to what you're saying about how when they got split up and then they were in the 3 separate locations. I thought it was only me, because it's like this city, when we saw it, didn't look that big. So even if they're on exact opposite ends of the city, they're not that far apart. I mean, even if they were in New York City, it's like, okay, you're like 10, 12 miles apart. They look like they're in different worlds. So that was a little disconcerting. And then they don't find each other, and they're so far apart that they're weeks apart traveling and stuff. So that is very, very strange, you know, and maybe it's explained better in the book, but visually it just didn't make any sense. Now to get to this trio of people, I absolutely agree with Nynaeve. I mean, her taking out everybody is just, I don't understand it. I don't even understand why the 4 kids have so much respect for her, because I haven't seen her do anything that deserves respect. Even when in that first episode, what did she really do to earn this undying loyalty from everybody? Yeah, you're telling me she's a wisdom, but what did she do? The only thing I saw her do of any significance was push the girl into the river at the beginning of the episode, you know?
Yeah. Moiraine has this line about, well, if you're going to call yourself a wisdom, you know, you should be able to actually show some. And she doesn't. And she's right about that. We don't see that.
Yeah, so I don't understand this undying loyalty and love for this character from the four people that presumably know her best. So it's like maybe it's a fault in storytelling in this series or whatever it is. I just don't get it. I don't get why anybody is that loyal to her. On top of that, I think all of you brought up this great point, and I'm going to go back to where I come from. I see her walking around with this giant attitude, and I'm waiting for a Latina woman to come out and be like, honey, if you don't put yourself in check, I'm going to put you in check, and it's just like, tell her, because no one is going to put up with that, especially in a female society. If you are going to cop attitude like that, a woman with real power and real wisdom experience is going to come in and put you in check. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen. And so it just doesn't come off real. It really doesn't come off real at all. As far as getting Moraine out of the way, I understand what they're doing. And sadly, once again, like Perrin, Lan is the most interesting character of this trio. And he is the easiest one to root for. He's the one right now out of these three that I would watch an entire series just about Lan wandering the land, And I didn't mean to, to rhyme like that, but he's like a Ronin. I don't know if that is what he's like in the books, because it seems like the books are more European, but he could be a questing knight in European terms. But he's just got this quiet strength about him, and he does what he does. And he's got a sense of honor. And I'm like, I want to know more about this character. Moraine, I'm like, Moraine, I want to see what you're doing, but you bug me. But at least she's interesting. And Nynaeve, I'm like, if you just fell off the face of the earth right now, I'd be fine. So
now the show is in a very heavy-handed, unsubtle way, blending, as we talked about in the first episode, multi-ethnicities and multi-cultures and multi-time periods in human history, but just asking us to accept that all those things coexist in the microcosm of the story world. But they jump out at you, and you can't help for them but to jump out at you, and there should at least be some type of acknowledgement. We talked about that before, because again, subconsciously, your brain is like, why would these people be with these people and let these people have some type of cultural tie to a cultural marker that we recognize, like the Ronin reference, and we can understand that if they come from that kind of background, that's why they act the way they do. But
Lan has got a nobility about him.
Yes,
that is intriguing, and you're like, where does this come from? Especially since in later episodes we're going to meet other warders who are skilled fighters, but they don't have that nobility. So it's like, where is this inner strength and nobility coming from in this character?
He has the stoicism I really like.
And the heart of the story is really a form of gender war. So we're going to get to that at the end when we have the big reveal at the end. But let's look at our next couple. Our next couple is Egwene and Perrin. Now, couple things. First thing is, I told you, as soon as I saw what was going on with Perrin last time, I called what's happening with him. And so what's going on with the wolves is really fairly obvious. At least it was to me. First time I saw it, I was like, okay, well, I see what that is. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be totally wrong, but I don't know how to say it. I feel more chemistry between Egwene and Perrin than Egwene and Rand.
Agreed.
And I don't know what it is, but there's something about the way they vibe. Maybe because I know she would lean to him for strength because he's tall and strong and they're out there by themselves. I get that. But somehow I bought the sincerity of that because Egwene and Rand are a little bit like Anakin and Padme. We're supposed to believe they're in love because the plot says they're supposed to be. But I don't feel it. I don't feel it on a visceral level. But I do feel something between Egwene and Perrin, whether they, and maybe it's because, and I still love Steve's Peter Rasputin reference, but it's because we know that Perrin's heart is ripped wide open. That heart is just wide open. He walks around with that look on his face, the look of a man whose heart has been ripped out. We know that look. If you're a man and you ever had your heart broken because the woman you love has been hurt and then God help you, he's the one that killed her. That's all on his face all the time. So that heart is wide open.
I think I know why we feel like there's more relationship between those two than Rand and Egwene, and I think it's because Egwene seems to have genuine care for Perrin here. She doesn't give a crap about Rand, and we've seen that. She's demonstrated it several. Excuse my language. Sorry. She's demonstrated it throughout the first couple episodes where his feelings are secondary. There is no real relationship there. She just uses him. Versus, I don't think there's romantic tension there, but she definitely cares for Perrin, and I think she cares for him much more and his well-being than she does for Rand. She uses Rand as, whatever she needs him for, emotional crutch, sexual release, whatever it is she needs. He's the little, excuse my language again, he's the simp who's, running behind her. So
I was going to say he's a plan B at best.
Yeah.
I got you on that one. So I've, understood from the beginning that these wolves, that he's a part of them. And that's going to be developing, or I hope they do more with it than we've seen. I've watched ahead as well and seen some stuff, but there's a vibe there. There's a spirit animal connection. There's a kindred. There's a guidance. All that is plain as day. And it was to me as soon as I saw the nature of his wound, I was like, oh, okay. All right, I see where this is going. But so we got there. So, but one of the things I find interesting, and I can't wait to hear what Steve says about this, because they run into the travelers, the wanderers, the tinkers. I can't say their real name. The two Waniwanis. I can't say that, but
the gypsies.
Right. They are clearly Romani.
Yeah,
they are clearly a gypsy culture, and welcome them with warm arms. And I like the way Egwene and Perrin don't trust them as nobody would, but they feed them, and they're like, we just wanted to see what was up with you, and all that different kind of stuff. And they fascinate me. They feel like a traveling circus. They feel like the Flying Graysons would be with them. And I know Nightwing is Steve's favorite character, but it pulled me into that world. And it's one of the least developed parts of Dick Grayson, the fact that he is Romani and everything that means, both culturally, ethnically, in terms of religion, worldview, and what it would mean to these people as well. But introducing them in this fashion with this particular couple, with Egwene and Perrin, I thought was really, really brilliant. And I just like seeing them interact. And honestly, a part of me got a little bit sad because I just subconsciously know, even without watching the other episodes, I'm like, this ain't gonna end well. I wish it would end well, but there's too much love here. There's too much. See, whenever you're in any type of sci-fi or high fantasy story, whenever you find a location where the characters could settle and live out the rest of their lives, it's going to blow up. And I'm like, oh, man, I like y'all. I like the way you treat our two characters. That means it's not going to last. And that's hard watching it, because one of my closest friends is a circus person, and she's fought for the rights of the circus animals and make sure they're not abused. And she's worked for a circus for years. One of my cousins did Ren Fair for years. So I just dig the whole traveling troupe thing. I just dig it. And you're welcome there. And it's not about anything but what you need. It's not about a demographic barrier. I just dig it. So I'm like, oh man, something gonna happen to all y'all to get Egwene and Perrin away from me. And I just started weeping. I was like, oh well, guess it's coming. But to see again them developing their bond and their kinship, whatever it might be, it's genuine and it's sincere, and we can feel it when we look at them. And also, it now I'm stretching a little bit here, but it reminded me a little bit of the Brown Coats. It made me feel like a group of people who said, we're not about the organized alliance city life, or we're not about the warring factions. We're not about that. So we kind of live on the outskirts of all that and just kind of do what we want to do. Once again, I dig that. I really dig that. So I like just about everything about Egwene and Perrin's situation. And now they got to, the guardian wolves following around and everything. So So anyway, I got a really good vibe from all of it, but that's how I know it's not going to last, unfortunately. Throw it over to Nims. What do you think about Egwene and Perrin and the traveling peoples?
Well, like I said, I think that Egwene and Perrin, I think Egwene has much more care, emotion as far as taking care of Perrin. It's almost like a brother-sister relationship in some ways. I definitely get that feeling. Perrin's wound, I'm not sure why this has played out over all this time and what's going on with that, I don't know that it really gets resolved. It kind of takes care of itself. I'm trying to remember because like I said, I watched ahead. The gypsies were intriguing to me. I am going to have some quibble with their ultimate fate in another episode, just because this way of the leaf. I respect it. I could never follow it. It's just not who I am. The way of nonviolence and pacifism. I'm a person who fights back, and with all the good and bad that goes with it. But I understand it and I respect it. The thing that I'll just lay this groundwork for future stuff is that unfortunately, people who follow the path of nonviolence and it's very virtuous to do so. And like I said, I respect it. When you run up against bad people who follow the path of violence, it often doesn't end up well for them, because you're counting on the good graces of bad people, and so I will just lay that groundwork for when we get to that scene later on. And that's what I really want to, that I had a problem with, but that's for another episode. So.
Well, this is why Pressman was right with the Pegasus and the Phase Cloak. He made the argument you just made, that we may be trying to be exploring the galaxy and we may have scientific purposes and we may welcome new life forms, but everybody in the galaxy don't play by them rules. That kind of thing. That argument always amazes me. And I guess it's because I understand that it takes all kinds to make a world. And what teaches me that is my body, because my body is made up of a whole bunch of different kinds of things with different kinds of function. And each part of my body has to do what it do for me to function. Mm-hmm. And no part of my body gets to talk about how we don't need the other part just because we do different things. And so that's the way I see life. And that's the way I see people, because I'm not God, I'm just a man. So how are you going to tell people that, their function in life is wrong? So if you believe, like you said, pacifism and all that, that's cool. Somebody got to pick up the sword. This is a world full of swords. So if you don't like that, I hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
That's the only reason all y'all are alive is because the people around you know how to fight.
And I don't want to spend a long time on this, but just to digress, I mean, I've had this argument with people before, and I actually had a very interesting philosophical discussion with someone who's a friend of mine who was a university professor, who's very much a pacifist. And he made the case to me one time that if 2 million people had locked hands and started singing Christian Bible hymns and stormed the beaches of Normandy, no one would have died, and they would have taken over Normandy and then Nazi Germany with because the strength of their pacifism went overwhelming. I've been like,
wow,
and I'm just like, no, it's just, I'm sorry,
It's like, dude, they sent men, women, and children to gas chambers.
Yeah. So it's like, and to me, it's the exact same argument we're getting from these people here, but that is a whole philosophical discussion. And there's a great scene that comes later that's gonna, that we can go down that road in a later episode. So
what I'm pointing out here is how much I love it being introduced.
Yep.
I can't wait to get to the later episode and deep dive into it, but I love the idea of people with that belief system and people that are not tied into the warring factions per se, but have something else going on. Go ahead.
I absolutely agree. And not only do I agree, I think from, to praise Jordan, I think it makes sense for a wandering band of gypsies, because it's like, if you as a wandering band of gypsies who aren't going to be welcome anyway, take a combative tone, you're assured to be destroyed. Your destruction is assured, because you are not going to win anything through force of arms. So the best you can do is persevere. And you're going to take, and you are going to take your lumps. You are going to be a people that is abused. But if you try and fight, you will be a people who are destroyed. So
that's right. Okay, I'm going to throw it over to you, Steve. What do you think about Egwene and Perrin and everything that's going on with the Wanderers?
Yeah, Egwene and Perrin, I agree with all of you. I think that did it feel more real, and I think it's because they actually feel like they've been friends all their lives. All these people are supposed to be people who have known each other like since childhood. Maybe all of since they were born really, and they grew up together and they knew each other. You don't even get that sense from Egwene and Rand, and but you do from Perrin and Egwene, and I do kind of think it is the actors. Like I feel like that actress for some reason works better with this actor for some reason, and I just don't know why. It maybe it's just it's whatever off the screen chemistry they have, and it just comes off the screen. I have no idea, but I do feel like there is more of a friendship. I feel like she's not trying to use Perrin. I think that they are relying on each other, which is what you do in a situation like this. She needs his strength, and he needs her guidance because he's not the brightest bulb in the shed. He's a simple man. He's not somebody who is going to think 10 steps ahead of things. She's a little bit more worldly. She's a little bit better, at thinking through those things. And so I feel like that works. There is a give and take where there isn't with Rand really, and I think that comes across well. As far as the Tuathon, the traveling people, I think they were actually well represented from the books. That is more or less the way I remember them from Eye of the World. So they got that down. One thing I will kind of notice is that although I have jokingly called them fantasy gypsies, I was watching some of the extra material that was on Amazon Prime, and one of the things that they had pointed out is that they were drawing from other indigenous cultures in terms of like some of the designs, like some of the blankets and so forth. They actually drew from like Peruvian natives, things like that. Yeah. So they were using those things, and I think that helped add to the visual believability of the caravans. Like they actually drew from those kinds of cultures, and because of that, I feel like it came across really well on screen. So I have to give credit to the people who made the show for making that work. In terms of the pacifism, yeah, I have to say, like I don't believe in total pacifism. I can respect it, but we've seen over and over again that this doesn't really work. I'm actually kind of reminded from a scene from Good Omens when Crowley and Aziraphale, who are a devil and an angel, are standing in the crucifixion, and they're talking about Jesus hanging on the cross, and Crowley's asking, "Hey, what happened to him?" And it's like, "Oh, he wanted everybody to be nice to one another." Like, "Oh yeah, that explains it." so it's like, yeah, it's pretty much like that. Yeah, for me, I would say it's like I'm more against aggression than I am against than I am pro pacifism. But I think you do. I think there are times you just have to defend yourselves. But in the case of the traveling people, at least it's well thought out, and you can understand why they survived, not just by persevering, but by the fact that they're nomads. Because unlike a lot of these places like the Two Rivers, who get wiped out every so often when Trollocs come along, the Tuathon do not have a place where they're settled, so they can go and avoid trouble. And I think that that's really the way that they've survived. They've been clever enough, for the most part, to be able to avoid trouble for the most part. So you get this kind of interesting mix of the gypsies, these indigenous cultures, and maybe to a certain extent the Amish, those kinds of cultures as well. And I think it came together in a really interesting way, and I wanted to know more about them. But as you say, it is too good to last, unfortunately. And I did like the one lady who represented them, the mother character. I actually really liked her. She was really interesting to me, and I thought that she added something at that point in the show. So yeah, I thought that this particular group was handled reasonably well. Certainly better than the '90s stuff.
I'd add one other thing. One of the things I really enjoyed about this as they were traveling with them is that in this kind of society, this kind of philosophy, the people who are going to brush up against it the most, the people are the young, because the young want to take action. The young want to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The young want to be proactive a lot of times. This is the kind of thing for older people and wiser people, wisdom, cooler heads. So to see that young kid pushing back all the time.
Real wisdom as opposed to '90s.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, before I throw it to Jeff, I want to name something that we've been talking about. I want to be sure I name it for all the writers watching. The principle of writing that we've been talking about all episode long is show, don't tell. And everything about your story is better when you demonstrate motivations, skill sets, background, skeletons, or the corpse in the cargo, that kind of thing. We need to see that. And again, the scene with them with Egwene and Perrin and the traveling people is done so brilliantly in terms of you can take a bit of a panoramic look and watch the food they serve and the way they eat,
Mm.
and you can tell what kind of people they are. And you can tell that the kindness that they show to Egwene and Perrin is a regular part of their lives. And you can see what Steve just said, that if they need to pack up like that, that is not a big deal to them. That's not the first time or the last time they have to do that. And you get all that just in the visual by the way they sit and eat and what they serve and the way they're laid out in the ground. See, that's showing, not telling. But with Nynaeve, it just, she just keeps having an attitude that she can't justify and a whole bunch of stuff. And we have no reason to understand why you are the way you are. That's the difference. And that's what we need to see in more characters. Go ahead, Jeff. Egwene Perrin and the traveling people.
Yeah, I'll say to that point you just made, and this will actually comes into play when we talk about the other pair, but it's just a little detail, and that's one thing that this show tends to get so very right, are these little details. Like you said, the way that they structured their meals and the way they set up their camp. As Steve noted, this lends to the survivability of a gypsy-style culture, the ability to pack up and roll, which has saved them, whereas an established village can be wiped out, as we've seen in Two Rivers. So that's an advantage to not having roots in this situation. There's and so just seeing these little details, and like I said, this happens in the next pairing. But I couldn't help but notice when the Gleaman was introduced, when he comes to his center stage, he's got his barrel to sit on and he's got his box to put his foot up on. But they took the time, and I don't know if maybe they were shooting it and it made the actor's bum sore or something. But I noticed he had a wadded up cloth on there to act as a seat cushion. I was like, that's a cool little detail. And I appreciate these little thoughtful details that if this was the sort of thing that you would do, that the people, for whatever reason, put it in the shot. So I appreciate that. Just like I appreciated, even though the Tuathan were clearly based on gypsies, I couldn't identify the garb, but I was looking at the garb and thinking about the distance that Perrin and Perrin and Egwene had traveled, and I was thinking of kind of the Mongol steppes, and we see these people kind of dressed up like Sherpas, with these serapes, and that's a cool little cultural detail. If you're going to make this multicultural world, I thought that was a really neat little detail. So big thumbs up for the details and the investment in trying to build a cohesive world, even if we have to suspend a lot of belief. Because let's face it, if we were all in these multicultural societies, everybody just kind of end up being one skin tone after a few generations. That's just the way it is. You got enough interbreeding, that's what happens. But I think there's a part of us that kind of desires what these people have in a way. Now I'm a guy who's traveled around a lot because of the work my father did. And so it was almost like being a military brat. I had to live here, had to live here, had to live here. Had to get used to losing friends every couple of years, having to try and put down roots again. So it's established in me a desire to have roots and have a place to belong. But there is something appealing, especially I think as you get older and you're an empty nester. You've got nothing holding you back, and you kind of just want to take that great American road trip. That freedom to just go and do is very appealing. And the freedom these people have in both spirit and their mobility appeals greatly. And it appeals to people of different ages. The young, because as we'll find out in the next scene, how the lady at the mining town, she just wants to get out. I'm so impressed that you got out. That's everybody lives here. Because I grew up in a small town. I understood the sort of feeling that she had. So you can appreciate it. You can appreciate that sort of thing. And so it appeals to the young, but it also kind of appeals to the old. It's what am I going to do with the rest of my life? hey, if I haven't done it yet, let's go see the world. So there is that appeal. I know so many seniors who go out, they buy themselves an RV, and they say, like, let's just go check out every state in the nation. Very cool to do. Very, very cool. So I can't help but like these people, but like all of you guys, I know the writer's code is like, this is going to end so bad. So either these guys are going to get wiped out by Trollocs or some other horrible thing, or they're going to turn out to be flipping cannibals and they're going to try and eat Gawain and Perrin. It's going to be something terrible, and I know I'm going to hate it when it pops up. But for the moment, I'm really enjoying these people in the situation that they're in. As for Perrin and Egwene, there was some neat stuff going on. I like the fact that we showed, and there's a little bit of exposition to go with it, but when they're freezing and they're trying to maintain some space in the wolves, he's desperately trying to start fire, so desperately, and he's so cold that he slices himself trying to cut it. And Egwene, who's been told, like, you can tap into the one power, so she tries. And I love that it's ambiguous. We don't know who started the fire, and so that question is expressed, but we still don't know. I thought that was great. That's a great way to sort of build up things as far as things that are going on in a scene. Because I was wondering, as they were making their trek, they've lost their horses, so they've lost all their supplies. I was hoping that our blacksmith buddy had enough bushcraft to keep them alive. Because I don't know what Egwene knows, because she's not a wise woman yet. She's not a wisdom yet, and like I know she can hear the voices in the wind, but we don't know how far that goes. So there was a lot of questions there, and there are stakes, and there's that jeopardy, and plus, like Nemesis said, it was really weird. They all left 3 different angles of a castle, and they all ended up in lands that looked so wildly opposed. You'd think they'd walk through a dimensional door and ended up in a completely different country when they were just surrounded by forest on all sides. So however that happened, but still, I do appreciate the visuals of that. Now, the chemistry between these 2 actors just makes me realize how terrible, as if I didn't like it already, how bad the chemistry between Rand and Egwene is. It's just non-existent. And maybe this is purposeful. I don't know, because it doesn't put her in the best light. As Nemesis said, it makes her feel more like, Rand is a sense of a usury. He's just convenient. He's just there, and maybe that was just small town life, and maybe that was so easy. Why it was so easy for her to make the choice to accept the teachings of wisdom and become a wisdom, because he didn't have anything to offer her for her future, but nothing that she really wanted from him. It was all sort of in the moment, and because we don't have any real past interaction, because we are told and not shown, there's no reason to really believe any of that there is a sort of connection. But when I watch these 2, I feel it. I believe it. I could see them pairing off if circumstances develop far enough. I understand it's probably more of a familiar brother-sister sort of relationship here, but I buy into the 2 of them and the relationship they have, the feelings that they have. I love the way that he's trying to protect her, and I love the way that she's trying to comfort him at the loss of his wife. Now, that brings me to something that I only noticed upon rewatching episode 1 and 2 with my wife to get her caught up on the series. So we have the thing with the wolves, and at first, when the wolves didn't attack him, I immediately have to wonder, like, has he got a connection that we don't know about, or is this something sinister? We see it again here. The wolves, we don't know to start with, but they appear to have driven them to a place of safety. That sounds pretty cool, but at the same time, he has another nightmare, and it's the wolf eating the guts of his wife. That's very sinister, especially when it ends with the burning eyes of the Dark Lord. So I had to question that. Are the wolves sinister or not? They don't seem to be, but then I recalled something. If you recall the moment of his wife's death, she's fighting her fight, he's fighting his fight. He finally gets the upper hand on his Trolloc. He starts smashing it down, obliterating its head. Anybody who observes this knows that this thing is dead. There's no need to strike another blow. But when he senses motion behind him, he turns, swings his axe, and his wife's axe is above and behind him like this, as if she was about to deliver a heavy blow. And because of what we will find on later on the episode, I have suspicions about his wife and what it means that the wolves were eating her guts. Don't trust anyone.
Okay, that's an excellent point, and I want to tap on that before we go to the last couple. What I got out of the scene, the nightmare scene, was the juxtaposition of his new family devouring his old family, and it hammering the guilt into his psyche yet again. And because she did that thing that dead people do in the dream, she looked at him with the dead eyes, and they look right at you. So she did that thing. That's a sci-fi movie trope. And then we do get to see the Dark One, but I did not connect the dots you just connected. I thought,
yeah, because I started breaking that down. If she had been just in a ready stance when she came up on him and he turned on reflex, her axe, she could have had her axe and deflected the blow, but her axe was held like this. If you go back and watch it, it is held over her back for a huge downward power shot. That's why she was wide open.
if something comes from that, we definitely see the connection now that you put it together. I thought it was the Dark One manipulating his dream to get access to him, to throw him off, to make him open to whatever the Dark One might want to do.
I mean, it could well be, because you remember my speculation before, if he turned out to be the dragon, or even if he just turns out to be an agent of the Dark One, he's the guy with the big open festering wound. He's the guy that you're going to have the most purchase on.
See, and then I saw it as just pure guilt. You know, it's just
could be that too, but
I'm dealing with guilt.
I'm going a little deeper, because that whole thing, and it might have just been like staging for the convenience to be able to kill his wife, but I happen to think there's so many details in this show that are worked out so thoughtfully. I can't, and especially with what we find out happens a little bit later on in the episode, that Whedonist twist, I can't help but feel like that was a purposeful move on the creators, that was a killing blow she was going to deliver to him.
See, but that's a cool concept. Just what we're talking about here. I mean, for centuries of human history, and obviously centuries of history in this world, interpreting dreams, people made whole livings off of it. People created cults, and religions out of it, So and we even have one now called psychiatry. So it's
think about this as well. If I don't want to belabor this too long, but if we go back to the first episode, because we don't get to know a whole lot about his wife, she doesn't participate in the celebration. She's working at the furnace, like she's working something out, and he goes up to her and he grabs her lovingly from behind. He goes like, I love you, and she then finally covers his hands with her own. I know. But she never really makes that sort of contact with him, that intimacy you would expect, as if maybe she had been given orders.
No, that's
as if she
true.
had an ulterior motive that she had to follow through on.
That's very true. She was very standoffish with that love embrace, and I was like, I noticed it too. I was like, that's not the way somebody that feels the same way back would respond.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nims.
I was just going to say, just for everybody who's out there watching, let us know in the comments, or in the chat what you think, or leave it in the comments underneath the
throw your theories
the video.
out.
So we want to hear what you have to say too.
I'm staying mum on those theories because I don't want to spoil anything.
Because Steve be knowing stuff. So Bracy just convinced me that his wife is potentially a dark friend, which is a good transition into our last couple, which is Rand and Matt. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in their segment that I found really kind of interesting. Not them, but the stuff that happened. So when we first, like I said, it's an Our Mrs. Reynolds situation. You get a sense of a character being one way, and then they flip totally to something sinister that you didn't see coming. And I have to say, I was genuinely surprised to see that after all the time Dana spends befriending Rand and Matt, she has ulterior motives, but it's a great introduction to what she believes. And she's what the show calls a dark friend, meaning she's given herself to the dark side of the force. And so she's going to do the will of the dark side of the force. And that means delivering the potential dragon to the Dark One, and everything about that was a setup, and she knew who they were from the beginning. The scene that exposes her is when she says, "I shouldn't have braided my hair because it reminds you too much of Egwene." And Rand is like, "What? What did you say?" And so I was kind of bored by the interplay between them because I knew it was going to lead to a kiss. But then when Dana flips, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's the game you were playing," which I found fascinating. As much as I don't like Matt, I must again confess that he's the only person reacting like a person would react in this situation. If you're in this situation, somebody or everybody at some point will react just like Matt. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Our friends are probably dead. We're out here on some type of wild goose chase, following some woman that we just met, and she played on our fear to get us to leave home. And where has that led us? And all his points were legit. As much as I don't like him, I have to say his points were really legit. But once again, he proves himself to be lazy and tries to do as little work as possible. Yep, but you're still a weasel and I can't stand you. So then when we get the big revelation with Dana and how it's all a setup and who she is and what she's about, I didn't like the sword fight because it's another situation where, like Nynaeve, I'm like, so this woman is just going to best you because she's just so good with the sword you can't do anything. But then we get the hint that Rand might have super strength.
Yeah.
We get the hint that that's his hidden superpower because he moves a door that she said 3, 4, 5 men, whatever, couldn't move it. And in about 4 or 5 solid blows, he knocks that door right off his hinge. Now, they lost me during the chase scene because she was not running fast enough to catch him anyway. See, when you're a runner, anything that you do, you know what it looks and feels like. So when somebody's doing it on the screen and it ain't right, like we talked about playing instruments before or using weapons. So when she's running, I'm like, she ain't fast enough to catch y'all. The way she was moving, I'm like, yeah, no, y'all could have been gone. So I'll give you some points for maybe not knowing your way around everything, but she was too far behind you, and she does not have any type of aerodynamic lift or thrust. She's not cutting through the air. She's barely swinging her arms and all that. I'm like, that girl couldn't catch you. Y'all could have been gone. But anyway, I'm being nitpicky. And then the
goes
best,
back to show, don't tell. Show, don't tell.
Don't tell. That's right. And then probably the best twist we've seen so far, or one of the best, is that, the operative, aka the Gleaman, takes this girl out from behind with a kill shot to the throat. Do you know how accurate and strong you have to be with one shot to drive a knife from back here out here? And I was like, holy cow. I'm like, this dude's got some training. You're an assassin in your other life. You're just playing a guitar now. So I liked, like I said, not so much liking them. And also, as soon as they get to the bar, I'm like, Mos Eisley. I was like, equal high of accountability up in that mug, and nothing but pickpockets and ne'er-do-wells up in that mug. But I'm like, okay. So as I'm watching it, though, I'm like, okay. Following everything that's going on. And again, the dark friend concept is fascinating because now we know that could be anybody. It's another form of religious zealotry. And it could be anybody that ties into that belief system. And Jeff just made, because that's what Jeff does, he makes the most incredible arguments, connecting things that you didn't see. He just made the best argument for maybe Perrin's wife, based on what we did see. Maybe.
And they keep asking the question, how did the Trollocs get there? So that's just such a disturbing thought that
I know how the Trollocs got there, but I won't spoil it.
Yeah.
But if she's a dark friend, and if she thought what Dana said, that she was going to be the one that turned over the Dragon Reborn in potential to him or whatever, then with that level of zealotry, she would have taken her husband out, or she at least would have taken him down, if not killed him. And maybe that's what was about to happen, because Jeff's case is incredible. And now when I imagine that scene, I see it from a different frame now. I'm like, what was she doing standing by her husband with her axe raised? Like if that axe comes down, where does it land? Lands on him. So yeah, something to think about. So yeah, so when I'm looking at all this, all this stuff unfolding, I'm like, to me, the story world just got broader, and I love it because now you've introduced yet another faction that could be anywhere, anytime, that could turn on you. So now we know that No Haven is actually fully safe because of the introduction of that concept of Dark Prince. So let me throw it out to my co-hosts. Start with Nims. What do you think about Rand, Matt, Dana, and the Gleaman operative?
Well, let me start with the Gleaman. I already said a lot about him. I think he's an incredibly cool character. Yet another character where if you gave me a series following the adventures of the Gleaman, I'd be happy, just like Lan. I'm hoping against hope that he will make a reappearance at some point. I don't want to give away what happens to him in the next episode, but I'm hoping that he comes back. I don't know if he will, but I would love to see that. I think he's a really cool concept, really cool character. Dana, that one took me completely by surprise. That actress sold the heck out of that scene. I was like, because when she was putting the moves on him and I was watching Rand, I was getting upset at Rand. I was like, Rand, what are you doing? It's like, you're pining for this other girl. What are you even thinking? And then I was feeling bad for this woman because I was like, you're not getting anything from this guy. This guy is a puppy love with the Rand. So he's not going for you. Even though he was thinking about it for like a millisecond, it's not happening. So I was feeling bad for her, and then suddenly it turned. And I'm a little bit cynical at this point, but I've seen a lot of stuff over the years. You usually don't take me by surprise. It's like I usually see it coming. I didn't see that one coming at all. So that was just made the whole episode for me. When you could take me by surprise, I'm like, oh no, then you have done something wonderful. So I love that. Matt, man, I just want to slap this kid. I really do. I just want to slap him because he's his own worst enemy. He's got all of the right instincts, but his code is corrupted. That's what it is. It's not that he has no code. His code is corrupted. This kid has a darkness in his heart that has made him cynical and corrupted him to all his possibility. And it's just literally, if in real life, this is the kind of kid you want to slap and then take under your wing and try and steer him down a different path. It is really hard to watch. And I guess that's good from a character point of view because I care, but it's just like, God, Matt, come on, man, be smarter, and it really, I'm like, come on, what are you doing? And Rand is the exact opposite. Rand's got a code, he seems to be a pure character, but he's white rice. He's bland, there's just nothing there. And I don't know if it's the character or if it's the actor. And I guess I'll just throw this out there. My pick for who the dragon was all the way back in episode 1, and it's this character. I think this is the dragon. But I'm confused by the rules now. Because now I have seen Perrin has powers. I've seen that Rand has powers. I don't think that I've seen Matt has powers, but Matt's got something going on with him. I think it has to do with that night, but we'll see what's going on there. And Egwene has powers. So it's like, do they all have powers?
Well, not unless you count maybe the whispers leading him to that dagger in the city. But
True.
That might be the only thing.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't understand the rules anymore. So I'm a little confused, and maybe that's exactly what they want me to be, is confused. But as far as just archetype and his trajectory, his potential as a hero, that's why I picked him early on, and I could be absolutely wrong. And I don't want to know. Please don't leave that in the comments. I don't want to know what's going on. Okay. But yeah, it's unfortunate because this is the character of all the characters who has the path of a hero, the qualities of a hero the most, but there's no personality there right now. There's none.
That's right.
There's absolutely none. He's absolutely bland. Perrin has got that quiet strength. He's got guilt going on. He's got a whole arc. Matt's got his thing going on. Egwene, even for all her stuff, has got her stuff going on. Rand is just a lovesick puppy doing his thing. And that's the most interesting thing about him. And that is unfortunate. It really is.
Absolutely unfortunate. And another thing that we know, okay, well, I'm just going to say it straight because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But basically, I do not want this show to turn into the Flash, where everybody named Mama got superpowers. All right. I'm 2 seconds away from being tired of that about everybody gets under stress and then their mutant powers manifest. Now, if we're watching The Gifted, I'll take it. If we're watching any other kind of X-Men show, I'll take it. But not every time you get in a stress situation, then all of a sudden here come the mutant powers, and that's what's happening. Yeah. So I'm hoping they kind of nip that thing in the bud, because if everybody has powers, nobody has powers. And if everybody's special, nobody's special. We got that from The Incredibles. So I'm hoping we don't go down that road.
Yeah.
Part of me is feeling like that's where they're going. I just hope they don't.
And like I said, I'm confused. It's like, okay, if Perrin's got his wolf thing, you need to explain that to me, because is that from the source or is that some other power? I mean, are there other people like that do those types of things? I need to know that, because now the rules of your world have suddenly been blown up for me.
No, it's because he got bitten. And remember, the wolf came and licked the wound.
Okay.
Because he's got bitten. So now he's got some type of transformative blood in him. So maybe it's a Peter Parker kind of thing.
The same thing with, like, the apparent super strength of Rand. Where'd that come from? You know?
Right. Remember, we're watching things happen to archetypes. We're not watching people react in these situations, except for Matt's freak out. And we all hate him for it.
And I guess that's the last thing I would say is that it just occurred to me is that Rand just knocked down this the blast doors, the stormtroopers put the blast doors down. I don't know about you, but if I suddenly, was rolling down the road and I picked up a car and threw it out of the way, I would have some reaction to that. I'd have some emotion afterwards, I didn't see
all
anything.
He did was look at Dana with kind of, well, look at that. And then they ran.
Yeah. So.
Go ahead, Bracy. Thoughts on Matt, Rand, Dana, and everything that's happening?
All right. Let's see. I guess since we're just on the subject, we'll start with Rand. Rand is... Boy, my nose won't quit itching tonight. Rand is everything Nemesis had to say, unfortunately. He feels like the guy who's supposed to be the dragon from the get-go. It really feels like they were funneling him that way. And then when you see the display of super strength, you feel like, oh, okay, he's definitely tapping into something. He's just so doggone vanilla. I mean, he is so vanilla. Not to like harp on like a white thing, but like he is so plain vanilla. I mean, he's all the tropes.
Yeah, at least give us some caramel with that vanilla. It's like something.
Dude, he is all the tropes. He is white knight and hard for the girl who doesn't pay him any attention. He's simping big time. He doesn't even have like the coolness of Johnny Rico in Starship Troopers. Like, I'm gonna go join the army because my girl did. Oh, I can't go in the same division. I guess I got to figure things out now since life didn't turn out the way I wanted. No, he is just blindly. She's gonna go to the tower. I'm gonna go to the tower because that's what she's gonna do. So that's what I'm gonna do. It's just like parents like, your boy, he's gonna go to the tower because that's where he thinks you're gonna be at. Because everybody in town knows he's a big simp. So, there's that. Everybody's got this kid's number because he doesn't really have a personality outside of like, I really, 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 really love Egwene. That's my whole thing. I love her so much. And he's going to do whatever it takes to prove that, even if, there's times he pushes her away, he gets upset and he has his little come aparts, but that's his whole deal, and that doesn't make him interesting. What made him interesting was finding out that he had some level of ability that was beyond the normal when he knocked down the ironwood door. And I saw it coming because, like, when he first hits the door, again, you got to pay attention to these details. You see stuff fall from the ceiling. I was like, huh. I was like, oh, no, you can't break it down. 3 men your size can break it down. And he hits it again, and I see, like, okay, more of that stuff. So it wasn't just the one time. I was like, he is going to knock down that doggone door. And sure enough, he does. boom. I was like, whoa, okay. Your character's not interesting, but now you are. Not you as a character, but you are. Whatever they're planning on doing with you just became a little bit more interesting. But other than that, he doesn't have a whole lot going for him. So we'll see. We'll see. Matt, unfortunately, I wanted to like Matt. I like Matt in the first episode. Complex character. He's got a lot of things pulling him in a lot of directions. He's a scoundrel, but he's a good guy. He has his own sort of nobility, if you will, because family loyalty is a very important thing, and he's loyal to the members of his family who need it. And he's at least somewhat loyal to his friends, but he's also a pragmatist. He's a realist. And he's the guy who will keep putting things out like, let's get things real. They're probably dead. We should just go home. This is a fool's errand. Like DT says, he's the guy who says the thing that we're all really thinking. But as the episodes have gone on, I like him less because he's becoming very, very predictable, which is disappointing because I liked how they subverted my expectations. The first episode, early on, we show him, I was like, oh, he gambles too much, he steals, he does this. I was like, oh, but he's taking care of his mom, he's taking care of his little sisters. But every decision he's made since then hasn't just been self-interested, it's been bad, like, oh, come on, Rand, let's go, Moran. She's the only one who can protect us right now, even though I'd really rather go home. But I'm going to go wander around the Death Village until I find something and touch it that I'm not supposed to. And like, hey, look, this guy's in a cage full of arrows, getting his eyes pecked out by the crows, but he's got a shiny on him.
So
I really
let me
kind of want
rob
that
his
shiny.
corpse. Right. So let me
Yeah.
get that jewel.
Yeah, so let me do all this when it's obvious they don't really like thieves around here. And on top of that, if he's the scoundrel of the group, if he's the rogue, why is he the one to get pickpocketed? Should have been Rand. When that dude bumped into him, I was expecting him to grab the hobo like, oh man, yeah, I know that trick. I do that all the time. Give me my purse back. He shouldn't have been the one to get the lift. It definitely should have been Captain Whitebread over there. That should have been the guy. This guy's got too much street smarts to fall for that. So he's as a character, he continues to disappoint me, unfortunately. They bring it back a little bit when the Gleaman catches him out there with the body. And I like the fact that even though he was willing to rob the dead, that he apologized for it. And that's like, okay, you brought him back to me a little bit. You gave me something to like about the character once again. It's like, I'm sorry, but there's people who need me and I've got to get home. I'm doing this not just for myself, not just for my own self-interest. So I can appreciate that out of the character. So I hope they do more like that because up until that point, I was like, oh man, Matt's just a loser. I'm not liking Matt anymore. And he was one of my favorite characters to start with. The Gleaman obviously catches everybody's interest right away. He has that moment of being, Strider in Lords of the Ring. He's interesting. He's immediately interesting and mysterious. And the more you see of him, the more you're interested in. Like he's creeping up on Matt, and he's yanking out a knife right away. And then he has this lore, not unknown for a bard to have lore, but he's got lore about the type of man that they're taking out of the cage to bury. He knows about their ways and their philosophy, and he's been around enough to understand that, this guy was wrongly killed, at least by his way of thinking. And he even allowing Matt to steal from him. He says, we've all done desperate things. And then he doesn't put judgmental eyes on him while he does it. He turns away. He gives him the privacy to rob the dead. And that was very powerful to me. And I can imagine that he's been in situations as a young man that remind him of Matt in a lot of ways. And he clearly is a guy who's been around. I had to wonder if he had spent time training with these soldiers before he even threw the dagger through Dana's neck. I was like, this guy, he knows how to handle himself. He's seen a lot, and he's a character I would very much like to see more of. So, not having watched ahead, and apparently he's going to diverge in some sound like awful way, I do hope that he comes back because he's definitely a very interesting character. Now, Dana, I'm like Nemesis. I bought into Dana all the way. I love the playful interaction. There's somebody who was able to have some chemistry with the actor playing Rand, but also the actor playing Matt. And she seemed like that kind of saucy tavern wench. You know, she had all figured out. This is my little domain. I've got everything going on. I know how to handle everybody, old and new out here. Totally bought into that. I liked her backstory about like wanting to get out of the town, wanting to see the world, not wanting to grow up and die in the same place. Totally got into all of that. And then when she was predictably making the play for one of the two lads.
Oops.
No, we lost everybody. So when she's predictably making the play from one of the two lads, because you know, hey, they're kind of the new flavor in town, you know. So let's take a ride on the new thing, right? Because I've seen everything else in town. I've lived here my whole life. When Rand rejected her, as we knew he probably was, although I thought there might be a slight chance, like, well, you know, maybe Egwene does kind of leave me behind all the time. I didn't suspect what she was up to until she went to the door and started to close it. And I was like, uh-oh, she's not going to leave in a huff. She's closing the door and she's locking the door. And then I started thinking like, oh my God, is she really one of the sisters? No, that doesn't make sense. They couldn't have implanted somebody in this town their whole life. The whole town knows her as the barkeep here. And then to find out that she was part of the cult of the Dark One. What a magnificent twist. Holy cow. I am so invested in this story now. If that twist alone would have sold me on the next episode, if nothing else. Genius. What a great, great moment. And like you said, this was like Whedon at the top of his game. Really getting you to like a character and then showing you their true face, or showing you something that they desire so much that they're willing to betray a certain number of principles or ideals or people. And it's such a human thing because we are so flawed and we can be governed by temptation if we have certain desires, certain weaknesses. And I can imagine like the Dark Lord offering her like, hey, you know, I'll take you out in the world and I'll give you power and I'll show you amazing things. And like, yeah, that's all I need. Sign me up. And she's willing to do anything and everything to change her station. And it doesn't matter because like, hey, you know, I don't really know these guys anyway. I love it. I will say to the chase, I was like you, she ain't catching them boys. They're taller. They're longer leg. She's got big old skirts on. I will give them, even though it was very convenient for her to suddenly cut them off, at least they had the presence to have her breathing very hard when she did catch them up. And she's like, you're not going anywhere. I was like, all right, split up. She won't know what to do. We're just going to outflank her and go around. But like, it was still cool. You know, it made for a great entrance by the Gleaman once again and give us a little bit more in his character.
Okay, before I throw it to Steve, I just have to say this. There's a little bit of pushback to what you just said. Matt doesn't have any redeeming qualities in me. That man is a weasel. That man would get with Egwene just to hurt Rand.
But he takes care of them little sisters, man.
Matt is Judas to Rand's Jesus. Matt is Pacey to Rand's Dawson. Matt is Lex to Rand's Clark. I can't stand him. Mark my words. That man is going to hook up with Egwene before it's over just to hurt Rand.
Yeah, maybe so, but he ran out into a battle full of Trollocs to save his little sisters.
Good. You know, they should have ate him. They should have ate his guts like a thing of hot dogs.
You know, when you commit to hating somebody, you do it.
Because my gut don't lie to me. That man's a weasel.
Jeff brought up a great point real quick, though. He mentioned Johnny Rico. If you think about what made the turning point in Johnny Rico's arc and what made him interesting, it's when the girl he was pining over threw him over and gave him a harsh dose of reality. So maybe that's what Rand needs, and all the viewers need, is for Egwene to finally just thrust the dagger into Rand's back and just saw away, you know, so that he
allowed him to become his own man finally.
Find his best friend with the love of his life. Maybe that'll be a wake-up call. Maybe that'll be a bucket of cold water to get you out of Simpville. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I can't really talk too much about Rand because it's like I can't think of anything. The thing of it is, it's like I can understand where they're going with Rand, but I feel like to be able to talk about that means spoiling things from the books, and I'm not going to do it. So I'm
Okay.
going to kind of leave you with that and let your speculations kind of go where they are with that.
Okay.
But I will say that, yeah, when I really thought about it, knowing what I know, I think the forcing the door open makes sense, is all I'll say about that. But beyond that, so we're just going to kind of leave with Rand. I do agree that so far he's been portrayed as kind of vanilla. I'm hoping that once they finally get to the reveals with him and showing like what exactly he can do and all of that, that we'll start to see more depth to him. That's my hope. Is all I'll say on that. As for Matt, yeah, I like his dynamic with Rand, and I will say this because I feel like Rand really needs that person, who can kind of throw the bucket of cold water on him. The idealist and the cynic, I think, is just a really natural pairing, and I think that really works. I agree that Matt is messed up. I especially when he starts, grave robbing. I'm like, really, Matt? You're really going to go to the point and grave rob this poor guy? Oh my god! And so yeah, I can see where you're kind of coming from with Matt as well. I think the thing of it is I find him interesting and I find him fun to watch, but he's not the kind of person that you really want to know very much. He's just that kind of guy where okay, he does fun stuff. He's the guy that breaks all the rules, and it's fun to watch that. But it's you just don't want to know him. He's just one of those guys who's just very grimy and goes to some very dark places. And we're going to see how dark he goes to some extent in the next few episodes. So I'm looking forward to talking about those. Tom Maryland, I think, pretty much owned this episode. He was. The thing of it is like he is a character who will come back. I can say that if they follow the path of the books, he will come back. But the thing of it is like I feel like he's more interesting on the show than I remember him being in the books, and I don't know how much of it is this actor and how much of it is the way that they play him in the script in this story. I just think he's really, really great. And the thing of it is, I feel like he's almost a better mentor figure than Moiraine is in this episode, especially. I mean, yeah. Moiraine just sits down and she's half dead and she doesn't do anything. I feel like Tom, the Gleaman, is the guy imparting lessons, and he's imparting them, in a very hard way. Like, this is a hard dosing reality, Matt, and you're going to have to learn that, and so I'm going to teach it to you the way that I know how to do it on the streets, and I feel like that really comes across, and Matt really does end up, learning a valuable lesson by the end of the episode. And I think that Tom is just really such a great character to deliver that message. He's just really, really fun. I agree that there is definitely stuff going on with him. We definitely get a glimpse of what he's up to and what his motivations are in the next few episodes, if I remember correctly, because we see a little bit of his background. One thing that I found really interesting is what is he doing when he first shows up? He is singing a song about the Dragon Reborn and the breaking of the world and the Age of Legends. So he's definitely has an agenda that he's doing with that. He chose that song for a purpose. And we find out to a certain extent, why he does this later on. And all of that connects really well. It's foreshadowed very well. And I just love the way that this character is full stop. I end up loving him by the end of this episode. He's just that good in this show.
Okay, we're going to call it there. But we can't leave without mentioning the very last shot, which was reminiscent of something we saw earlier in the episode, and that was that to quote them, we captured a man calling himself the Dragon Reborn. Camera zooms in, fade to black, credits. Now, the reason that's so powerful is because we've seen what they did, I believe, in the first episode with a man that was channeling, and we see the sheer contempt. Remember in the intro, Moiraine is talking about the arrogance of males to think that they, have any business doing this, a power that nature meant for women. So the sheer rage and the outrage and the moral, pushback that they have against a man doing that kind of thing is not subtle in this show. It's very upfront, right in your face. So when we see a guy that they've captured and he called himself the Dragon Reborn, holy cow, it felt like Adam West Batman cliffhanger. Tune in next time, same bat time, same bat channel, because I was like, oh my goodness. So the questions are like, if you're the Dragon Reborn, what can you do? Or if they think you are. And the second question is, what are they going to do to you? And I was like, oh, no, y'all didn't cut the episode off with the cliffhanger. But it was really, really, really exciting. And I can't wait to talk about it, talk about what actually happens. The only thing I'll say, because I'm not going to spoil it, even though it's sloppy spoilers, the only thing I'm going to say is that it sure did not go the way I thought it was going to go. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it right there. But next time we're going to see this latest character begin to play out and what that means. And that's the one thing this writing continues to do well. And that is that when they introduce a new dimension or character or faction, the story world just gets all the bigger and it gets all the more interesting. And that is, high fantasy at its best. And so, I can't wait to see how this plays out. I think Steve said there's 8 episodes total for this first season. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay. How much of the book is that covering? Because they're cutting out a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, they definitely are. They have to. I mean, it's an 800 to 1,000 page book. So I think that they're generally kind of going along with the plot of Eye of the World, if I remember correctly. But it's like they're definitely cutting things in here and there.
Okay. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see, where they deviate from the book so they can surprise book readers and of the people that we feel like, have a true motivation. I want to see this guy's motivation, because you have to have some kind of bionic spine to channel in a world where literally everything around you will hate you for doing so.
And not just that, he's bragging about it, calling himself the Dragon Reborn. He's asking for it.
Right.
I'm suspecting he's got some sort of motive.
And I love.
Yeah, and if you understand how the one power works for men, why it works the way it does, and actually some of the supplemental materials on Amazon Prime would discuss this. I would really recommend watching those, because it gives a greater context into exactly why what Logain does, the character, the Dragon Reborn, the False Dragon, does what he does, and why it is so transgressive. So I would say that's really interesting stuff.
Transgressive is the right word. That's the right word. And I love the messianic overtones. And I love, again, just the sheer audacity, because that man represents literally everything the Aes Sedai hate. And they don't just kind of hate it. They hate it with passion. They hate it to the extreme. They hate it to pulling out all the stops to let you know that you've got no right to try to do what you're doing. So I'm fascinated. I'm hooked. So can't wait to continue. Okay, we're going to call it there. Thank you so much to my co-host. Thank you so much, Nims.
No problem. And the only thing I will say to Matt is today's grave robber is tomorrow's archaeologist. So good luck, Dr. Jones.
Thank you so much, Bracy.
Hey, man, I'll be with you next week as long as the Fade don't catch up with us. Watch out for the eyeless.
Oh, Lord. He says I'm there. Thank you so much, Steve.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy watching this and discussing this show, and I'm looking forward to doing it another time. And so until the wheel turns around once more.
To our audience, thank you for everybody that watched us live. Thank you for watching the replay. Don't forget to check out the other podcasts we have on United Capes Podcast Network and the other shows we have through Comic Crusaders. And we will all, me and my crew, we will all see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
See you, everybody.